Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this Axiad Microsoft webinar. We have some great hosts and participants today, so I'm excited to get started and introduce you to the team. First off, I want to introduce Eleanor Follow from Microsoft. She is the product manager for Microsoft Security, Customer Experience, and Engineering team. Hello, Eleanor. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Next up, Tim Larson, Senior Product Manager, Identity Security at Microsoft.
Hey, nice to meet you all today. Happy for you to come join us early in this morning or afternoon or wherever you may be. And here's wonderful talk.
And last but not least, Michael Thelander, Axiad Senior Director of Product Marketing.
Hey, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Eleanor, great to see you again. Tim, great to see you again. I think the last time we saw each other, it was in San Diego, and the weather was a lot nicer than it is right now. So,
but
I know. Can we go back to that? The nice, cloudy or sunny weather.
Yes, Authenticate was a great event. And we're excited to kind of follow up that event with this webinar on FIDO2, Entra ID, and Axiad. So I'm going to jump off and let Michael and Tim get started, and I'll see you at the end for some Q&A.
Great. Thank you very much, Tammy. So let's go ahead and jump in. Thanks, everybody, again, for joining. As Tim said, whether it's morning where you are, whether you're viewing this on demand or evening, hope to have an enlightening talk for you right now and some discussions about simplifying credential management. And of course, when we say credential management, we're talking about credentials for use in IAM systems and authentication technology. When we put this deck together, I dropped this slide in here because it had a pretty meaningful metaphor for me personally. And then everybody asked, of course, well, what is that? What is that, Jupiter? Is that two tadpoles in a pond? And no, actually, it's plate steel. It's a steel plate that has been welded or welded together in place. And the reason I use that is because it's a good metaphor for me for looking at authentication systems. Authentication systems can no longer be homogeneous and sort of one thing anymore. They have to be a welding of different technologies. They have to be a welding of different protocols, different systems, different keys and technologies, different hardware and different software. But if you do it right, you can actually, there's an old sort of wives' tale that welded steel is stronger than unwelded steel in some cases. And there's a grain of truth in that. If you do it right, if you do the join right, if you have a skilled welder involved in it, if you have good steel to begin with, it is actually stronger. And I want to use that, see if that metaphor kind of carries us through this discussion about simplifying credential management. Because now there's a lot of credentials, there's a lot of different things that we need to do in an authentication process. Lots of different things that we can use, different protocols that we can use, different kinds of encryption that we can use, and different fundamental technologies, whether they're physical or whether they're all knowledge-based. And I'm going to start this off with a question for Tim, just philosophically, and it's a big question, but I'm looking for Microsoft's sort of philosophical approach to authentication. You guys have been a leader in the authentication space for a very long time. But in this new world with multiple credentials, what's your kind of overall guiding philosophy as you start building out your product roadmap and your backlogs?
It's actually becoming a little bit more simple these days. I'll talk a little bit about the reason behind that in a future slide, but with a lot of the increase in identity-based attacks, a lot of our guidance right now is focusing on how to get to the strongest authentication as fast as possible. A lot of that being around phishing-resistant authentication. So it depends on where the organization's at, right? From deploying the type of credentials in their environment. But if they were setting forth on trying to achieve that right now, we'd always try to point them towards going phishing-resistant first.
Yeah, and that's great guidance. You're going to see that guidance repeated from multiple sources through the course of this presentation this morning. So we'll crack into it and start talking about what are we going to talk about today. Well, we're going to talk about the fundamental problems with authentication, the way that adversarial knowledge is increasing, and also their tools, tactics, and techniques are also increasing. While our environments are actually becoming more diverse and we need to support different authentication in different systems and in different kinds of environments, we're going to talk specifically about what anti-phishing solutions mean and the use of hybrid credentials, what it means to have strong authentication we're going to talk in detail about FIDO2's role in that and those kinds of credentials. And then we want to give some examples of what it looks like for an integrated solution that's got Axiad and Entra ID both at play, providing customers with a sort of hybrid credential management solution, and what that can mean both for their overall usability of their systems as well as their security. So a little background, I'm going to bust through the first couple of slides on this real quick because we have to do a little bit of prehistory and background. A lot of, as we were looking at the pre-registrations on this, a lot of the viewers that are signed up for it are already IAM professionals or they're solution architects, and I just think they know sort of the definition of multi-factor authentication, but it helps just do a quick run through. We're really talking about three different kinds of factors: knowledge factors, possession factors, and inherent factors, things that you either know or have, like a certificate or a credential, or something that you inherently are, like your fingerprint or your iris scan. And what we've seen is that because of the changes in technology, because of Gen AI for some reason, because of the incredible, preponderance of credentials that are available on the dark web, the something the knowledge factors as well as inherent factors are taking a little bit of a back seat to the importance of having good, solid credentials. When we talk about strong authentication, we're going to be kind of focusing on a lot of those possession factors, certificates and keys, and how those work. And that's largely driven by just the environment that's out there. There was like a lot of cybersecurity news, a lot of it is a little bit of hand waving and sky is falling panic, but there's some really good data that's out there. Hacker News did an article back in July looking at what we all know exists, a 500% surge in losses due to ransomware, and pinpointed it specifically to MFA failures and said, is ransomware getting that much better, or is MFA getting that much worse? It's actually a little bit more complicated a question than that. And I want to roll back the clock from where we are today to 2024, back about 9-10 years, and look at the really kind of the beginning of MFA when it really started getting its legs and started looking at wide adoption. And that was when some of the big names came out, Octaping, Duo, but also when we started seeing significant changes on Tim's side of the world and Microsoft, where we started sort of making this migration from Azure AD into this Microsoft Entra ID concept, and where it would fit, being driven by Windows Hello for Business and all of these multi-factor capabilities. That really started us on the MFA trajectory in 2015, and really the point where everybody was adopting it. But it wasn't too long after that we started seeing some sort of chinks in the armor, some holes in what MFA was actually presenting. The first of those, I think, was looking at the SS7 routing protocol and failures in that, vulnerabilities in SS7 that effectively impacted SMS vulnerabilities in multi-factor solutions. So those first multi-factor solutions that were using some kind of messaging-based or SMS-based one-time passwords or codes started seeing some deliberate exploits of some of the routing protocols that immediately impacted end users on the ground. Particularly in this case, this Ars Technica article tracks some events that were happening in German banks at the time, and where those were widely exploited. We go forward not too much more, a couple years forward, we're still dealing with the same multi-factor sort of capabilities and environments, but the threat landscape does start changing. We start seeing more and more of those bypass attacks on phishing, and now easier to execute with some tools that are like readily available. Murane, Necro Browser, tools that are readily available to help our adversaries actually bypass, particularly again, SMS based or one-time passwords. Krebs on Security came out in 2021 and actually shifted the conversation a little bit to saying, yes, our over-reliance on SMS technologies, because it's cheap and easy and relatively easy to apply, has really set us at a corporate liability. And we've also seen it then kind of gang up in 2021. This article from Intel 471 that talked about really using technologies together, where Telegram powered bots were basically being used to intercept and repurpose OTP tokens. So obviously things are not getting a tremendous amount better in 2022. Shifted, I think, from OTP-based attacks to, and then again, without picking on anybody in particular, because I think we are all vulnerable to these kinds of attacks and can all be victims of these. We look at like the Uber attack, which was pretty significant impact on a company that has a pretty pretty robust security posture and is known for having a robust security posture. But the attack changed to really being a push bombing attack based on MFA, where really at the end of the day, the weakest link is the person. And when this attacker kind of constantly sort of push bombed this person, reached them through a separate channel and basically said, hey, these are going to continue. I'm an IT admin trying to resolve something. These are going to continue. These push responses are going to continue until you accept one. Accepted it, and then there we are. At the same time, we saw significant attacks, also stealing major corporate logins and those capabilities and leveraging those through multi-factor solutions. That brings us to today, or at least just yesterday. And I'll wrap this history lesson up a little bit and look at what really happened in 2023 was the evolution of Evil Jinx and that phishing kit, and really becoming a prime mover on the dark web, and a tool that was readily available, not just for targets of opportunity, and we'll show that in just a minute, but specific targets that you could name to go and harvest credentials and intercept a multi-factor authentication session. Looking at strong authentication and where it was available. And then we saw an article in March of last year, so about 10 months ago now, that tied some points together for me, where the combination of these tools and also the availability of Gen AI to create content, to create the things that will drive these, being a significant weakness. As they say, legitimate platforms and legitimate AI being used to help our adversaries bypass MFA. And then that ultimately kind of brings us to where we are today. I want to touch on, with the assistance from HelpNet Security, who actually put this graphic together, what does that look like when I buy Evil Jinx and I deploy it? And when I said it's not really targets of opportunity, especially, but you're targeting somebody specifically, you're targeting an organization, collecting the information that you need to plant the phishing kit, the Evil Jinx phishing kit. And then, of course, it's going to work like a typical man-in-the-middle or adversary-in-the-middle attack. Your victim is going to enter credentials that the kit will forward on to the MFA destination, the destination server, get it logged in, returning the session cookie and what you need to continue that login in that session. But of course, the threat actor grabs the session cookie or copies it or stores it for later, passes it on again, and of course, the victim is none the wiser. What's different about this, I think, than your typical man-in-the-middle kits is, again, the availability, the focus of it on a specific victim, and also the inexpensiveness of it. You can buy Evil Jinx for something in the neighborhood of $600 or $700, I think. And I think that's a little bit shocking. That's something that even I could justify in my expenses. So when we look at the question of what's wrong with MFA, or why are we needing to bolster our MFA defenses, make them more robust, it's really a question of looking at improvement over time in two vectors: our own authentication systems improving versus adversaries' ability to crack into those systems, and that they're just basically outstripping our ability to reach those.
To watch the full video, click the link below to our Bright Talk channel. For more Axiad content, click subscribe.